Sorry. Order, order. We start with questions. Secretary of State for the Home Department. Munira Wilson.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
We are clear that visible policing is essential to restoring public confidence in our police, which is why there will be 3,000 more neighbourhood police on the beat by April next year under this Labour government. The Metropolitan Police will receive up to £3.8 billion in funding in 2025-26, and that's a £262 million increase in funding through the settlement.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. If I may, as a London MP, could I please begin by paying tribute to the brave police officers from both the Met and many other forces who were bravely policing protests on Saturday, a number of whom were injured in the line of duty as a result of abhorrent attacks. I'm sure the thoughts and prayers of all members on all sides of the House are with them. Mr. Speaker, last week we discovered that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, admitted that he knew as far back as November that the Met planned to close a number of police front counters across London, having promised just 6 months prior in his election manifesto that not a single borough would be left without a police front counter. With the decision to close Twickenham's police front counter, Richmond-upon-Thames will be left without a counter. So does the Minister agree with me that, given the importance of police counters in maintaining trust and accessibility to our police, that this decision needs to be reversed, that the Mayor of London has broken his promises and Met Police should be funded properly?
Can I associate myself with the comments the Honourable Member made at the start of her question? Of course, we've been in close contact with the Met throughout the weekend, as she would expect, and our thoughts are with those officers who were injured, some seriously, and of course we must ensure justice is done for them, and they run into danger for us every day. I am clear that the Mayor of London is making the right decisions on policing across London. Of course, honourable members will feel that their particular police stations are important, and of course visible policing is clear. But what our communities say, my communities in Croydon say to me, is that they want to see police on our street tackling crime, not sat behind desks doing the job that unwarranted police officers could be doing. And that's why we are putting neighbourhood policing at the heart of our policies and putting those 3,000 police back on our streets by April next year.
Mr. Taylor, let's have it. David Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A constituent of mine tried to act as a good Samaritan by handing in a handbag that they'd found in the town centre, but couldn't, as Hemmel's police station's front desk closed under the last government. They were told they'd have to travel to Hatfield, which was half an hour away. I welcome Minister to her place, but I wonder if she would agree to me that Hemmel's police station front desk should be reopened so that the police can be even more accessible to our constituents.
I'm not sure the Mayor's got responsibility, but Minister.
No, of course, I'm very happy to talk to my honourable friend about the situation in his local community to make sure the police are doing all they can to tackle all of the crimes that have been not considered a priority under the last government, from antisocial behaviour to low-level theft, which of course is incredibly important to our communities, and we need to make sure we're tackling.
So, Minister Matt Vickers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the new front bench to their place. The last Conservative government recruited a record number of police, but earlier this year we discovered that despite Labour promising more police, their headcount has already fallen under them by 1,316. Both the National Police Chiefs Council and the Met Police Commissioner have warned that we'll lose even more officers. So when will the Minister restore police numbers to the levels that they were at under the last Conservative government?
I'm not quite sure it fits, Tom.
Can I thank my opposite number for his welcome to my place, and can I use this opportunity to also thank my right honourable friend, the member for Kingston upon Hull North, who did a brilliant job as policing minister over the last year. Under the last couple of years of the Conservative government, shoplifting soared. We saw a 70% increase. We saw street theft up 60% in 2 years. They ignored antisocial behaviour. Violence and abuse against shop workers was at epidemic levels, and the yo-yoing of the police numbers did not help. They cut 20,000 if the honourable gentleman would remember. We are prioritising neighbourhood police. We will make sure the police have the resources they need. We will use new technology to ensure we are tackling crime as much as we can. Those 3,000 neighbourhood police officers in place by next year and the 13,000 police that we have pledged in our manifesto will make a real difference to people's lives.
Can I just gently say it is about the Mayor of London and police closures. We've allowed a little bit of advantage in. Let's see how we go from here. Try and stick into the questions before us. Christian, please.
Number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
The Department takes its responsibilities under the Animals Scientific Procedures Act extremely seriously. Approvals for the use of animals in science are only given where no alternatives exist and where the scientific benefit justifies the potential harm. The Government will soon publish a strategy on how we will work towards phasing out the use of animals in science.
Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More than 1.6 million animals have been approved for testing over the next 5 years, including licences for invasive brain research on monkeys and looking at different methods of killing animals in laboratories. Labour's manifesto committed to phasing out animal testing. Can the Minister reassure me that the non-animal methods strategy will commit to Herbie's law and provide a clear framework to phasing out animal experiments within the next decade?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to him. Herbie's law is a proposed legislative framework to phase out animal experiments, specifically medical research in the UK, by 2035. The Government's commitment is clear. We will partner with scientists, industry and civil society to work towards a long-term goal of phasing out the use of animals in scientific research and testing. And I will ensure that the Honourable Member receives a letter from the relevant Minister.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for that answer. Minister, there's quite clearly through the animal scientific experiments that took place, people had their lives saved, and we want to thank them for that. But at the same time, there's a growing number of people who have grave concerns, my constituents and probably the Minister's constituents as well. Can he assure us that when it comes to doing animal experiments of any sort, that the priority will always be the person who can be saved as a result of the experiments, but also the care of the animals? That's what my people want. I think that's what everybody wants. Thank you.
Well, I can give him that assurance. The Government authorises the use of animals in science under the Animals Scientific Procedures Act of 1986, and that's to support critical national objectives in public health, scientific innovation and environmental protection. The authorisations provided by the regulator are not a blanket approval, but a tightly regulated process that has rigorous, robust, ethical, legal and scientific scrutiny.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have it on good authority that the people smugglers... Sorry, number 3. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, you should have let him go for a bit. Under this government, the National Crime Agency has led 347 disruptions of immigration crime networks, its highest level on record, and a 40% increase over the previous year. And we are passing legislation to give both the National Crime Agency and law enforcement more powers to arrest those suspected of facilitating people smuggling at a much earlier stage. I was very sorry to see the Right Honourable Member for Ashfield not match his rhetoric with real action by voting for those measures when they were before the House.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try again. I have it on good authority that the people smugglers in Northern Europe are absolutely delighted with Labour's new front bench over there, especially the promotion of the member for Dover and there. Good authority. Because they know we will get more of the same from this Labour government. The boats will still keep coming, the boats will get bigger, and the people smugglers will make more money. So what difference is this Home Secretary going to make that the last Home Secretary couldn't?
Mr. Speaker, I think the Honourable Member has just admitted to having a hotline to a bunch of people smugglers. Perhaps he'd like to contact the National Crime Agency and tell them he's in touch with a bunch of criminals so that they can be appropriately dealt with. Mr. Speaker, that's all he and his party have, a bunch of rhetoric, no answers to the proper problems that the previous government left behind. It is this government that will clean up the mess and secure our borders.
Chris Murray.
Illegal immigration is by definition an international crime, and that's why it's so important we work with our allies like France in targeting this that affects our communities. Can I welcome the government's one-in, one-out deal with France, which has the potential to be the most game-changing step in British migration policy in decades? Can the Minister give us an update on how the one-in, one-out deal is going, and if she's spoken to her counterparts in France in her new role?
My honourable friend is absolutely right that international cooperation is the key for us securing our borders here at home and assisting our international partners to do the same with their borders as well. I'm already in touch with my French counterparts. That was a landmark agreement, something the party opposite tried to achieve for many years, but they were all words, no action. It's this government that struck that landmark deal, and we are working with our partners in France to get the first flights off the ground as soon as possible.
Pritchard.
I congratulate the Right Honourable Lady on her appointment, and I wish her every success. It is in the national interest and the national security interest that this issue is tackled. But I'm afraid that I think her front bench and the Prime Minister are absolutely wrong to get rid of a deterrent. And notwithstanding all the new policies, all the new bills, all the new relabelling and rebadging of organisations, unless there is a deterrent, the illegal migrants will continue to cross the channel, as they have been since this government has been in power. So when is a deterrent going to be put in place, and what will it look like?
Firstly, let me welcome the tone of the first part of the honourable gentleman's question. It is in our collective national interest that we secure our borders, and I look forward to working with colleagues from across the House as we get on with that important task. It is important not just to prevent criminality, but also to hold our own country together, and that's why I've always said I will do whatever it takes. I'm afraid to say to him that the Rwanda agreement, which is what he was referring to as a deterrent, was nothing of the sort. From the day that agreement was signed to the day that it was cancelled, 84,000 people crossed into this country. So that shows it was not a deterrent that was ever going to work. I am clear I will do whatever it takes, and I am already considering other measures that will deter people from making that crossing in the first place, and I will update the House in due course.
Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, immigration is still a big issue for my constituents. They email about it comes up when I'm in the pub. But people's frustration is turning to direct action, and Northampton is now filled with flags. Does the Home Secretary agree with me that flags are a symbol of our pride in our country and shouldn't be hijacked by plastic patriots and those who don't work in our country's interest?
Well, let me be very clear. I understand the strength of feeling across communities in this country about the use of hotels in particular. The right to protest is an ancient right in this country, and we will protect it. But it is important that we do not slip into rhetoric that incites violence or hatred towards other communities. I love the St George's flag. I love the Union Jack. That flag belongs to me as much as it does to anybody else, and we must never allow any of our flags to become symbols of division.
Mr. Speaker, lots of people know that under this government, the number of people arriving illegally has hit a record high. But many don't know this Labour government are repealing the power to scientifically test the age of those arriving and are hiding the data on the number making false claims about their age. Why the government doing away with powers that could prevent adult migrants getting into classrooms with children, and why are they hiding this data from the British people?
Home Secretary.
I mean, coming from the members opposite who did frankly nothing across their period in office and who are responsible for the mess that I'm having to clear up, I think that's a little bit rich. This government has been absolutely transparent, and we will carry on being so, and we will publish all the relevant data at the appropriate time. I'm very clear, nobody who can try to game our system is going to get away with it, and we will strengthen our rules rather than weaken them, which is what we saw under the party opposite.
Lisa Smart, Liberal Democrat spokesman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Many of those who come to this country by crossing the Channel go on to be granted refugee status. Earlier this month, the government backtracked on its promise to continue with the 56-day move-on period for those granted refugee status, barely weeks after a Home Office minister assured this House that the policy would last until the end of the year. The move-on period extension was working. It was giving refugees time to secure work and housing, while shielding local councils from sudden surges in homelessness caused by those being forced out of asylum accommodation too quickly. Halving the move-on period is worse for refugees who want to support themselves, worse for communities who are supporting them till they can get on their feet, and it's certainly worse for already stretched council budgets. Does the Home Secretary agree that it's better to do what works, both for refugees and the communities welcoming them? And will she look again at reinstating a policy that worked rather than chasing headlines?
Well, I have to say to the Honourable Lady, we are following what is working. Rather than having an arbitrary time period, we're working with local authorities to make sure we have the appropriate move-on period. It's in nobody's interest that people remain in hotels for longer than is absolutely necessary. And of course, it is this government that will end the use of asylum hotels.
Mahmood.
Question 4.
Home Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I will answer questions 4, 17, 18, 19 and 23 together. Every day, the police make us safer, but the public is rightly concerned that there are crimes that blight their communities and too often go unpunished. We are focusing police on the crimes that matter to local communities. We've delivered the neighbourhood policing guarantee, including a dedicated named officer in each neighbourhood, guaranteed response times and 3,000 more officers by April 2026.
Sorry.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, the Devon-based Devon and Cornwall Police and Crime Commissioner announced with great fanfare months ago that Camborne in my constituency would be a focus for her. There's been very little evidence of that increased focus since. She's also said that Redruth would not be a focus because it wasn't a business improvement district. Neighbourhood policing performance in the towns of Camborne, Redruth and Hale are inextricably linked. Can the Secretary of State meet with me and Cornish colleagues to discuss neighbourhood policing across Cornwall?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. I'm very sorry to hear about those issues with the Police and Crime Commissioner in his local area. It is important that those concerns are listened to. I'll be very happy for him to meet with the Policing Minister.
Serena Brackenridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the action that this government is taking to strengthen neighbourhood policing in Wolverhampton, with 27 additional roles and officers newly allocated or moved back into neighbourhood roles. 14 years of cuts left West Midlands Police with around 700 fewer officers than in 2010, and a funding formula that shortchanges our region by £40 million every year. Will my right honourable friend commit to reviewing the Tories' funding formula so that my constituents in Wolverhampton North East can have the same level of neighbourhood policing and security as other parts of the country?
Home Secretary.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her question. As a fellow West Midlands Member of Parliament, of course, I hear her concerns, but she'll understand that, as with previous years, decisions on police force funding allocations will be made via the police funding settlement, which is taking place later in the year.
Kevin Bonavere.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to commend the government for its commitment to neighbourhood policing, not least the proposed powers in the Crime and Policing Bill that will empower officers to stop antisocial and illegal e-scooter riding, which has been a dangerous blight across Stevenage town centre. However, does my right honourable friend not agree with me that we should be giving police the legislation and guidance they need to keep our local neighbourhoods safe, rather than arresting individuals for posting views on social media which, whilst considered offensive by some, are nowhere near the bar for inciting criminal behaviour?
Home Secretary.
I thank my honourable friend for his question. On the first part of that, he's absolutely right about strengthening neighbourhood policing to deal with the concerns that he has raised. That's why we've brought new powers forward in the Crime and Policing Bill. And I also agree with him. It is important that the line between that which is perfectly legal, fair comment, even if offensive, and that which is illegal is maintained as strongly as possible. I've already had conversations with senior police officers on this matter, and I'm pleased to see some of the statements coming from, for example, the Chief of the Met Police. I will be meeting with them in more detail to make sure that this line is not crossed, so that we can maintain confidence in our police.
John Morrison.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised there would be a summer blitz on antisocial behaviour, with more funding, more community police officers promised for our constituencies. Yet this summer in Cheadle Village, we've seen even more antisocial behaviour in the community. Throughout the summer, I was contacted by residents about crime in the area, including police officers being attacked, a local school being broken into, and neighbours being threatened for simply asking gangs not to throw rocks at their house. One of my constituents, Adam, told me it's the worst he's ever seen it. So can I ask the Secretary of State, why is this summer blitz on antisocial behaviour not included Cheadle?
Secretary.
Well, I thank the Honourable Member for his question. Over 500 town centres across England and Wales have seen the benefits of that summer initiative. I will ask questions of my officials about his area in particular, but that is an important model that we have trialled this year, which we will look forward to building on as we make sure that we have local responses, neighbourhood policing that can deal with local concerns and therefore build confidence so that people can enjoy our town centres as they used to do.
Lorraine Beavers.
I welcome the Government's commitment to neighbourhood policing guarantee to restore bobbies on the beat in our town centres, following 14 years of Conservative cuts, which has left our towns and villages to the mercy of shoplifters and the antisocial behaviour. Could the Minister outline how Lancashire, and in particular my constituency of Blackpool North and Fleetwood, will benefit from this guarantee?
Home Secretary.
The neighbourhood policing guarantee is absolutely critical to dealing with the issues that my honourable friend raises and raising confidence in policing more generally. The guarantee will ensure that all areas, including her own, will have a named dedicated officer with guaranteed patrols and reliable response times, as well as having absolute clarity about what local policing priorities are.
Sir Julian Moose.
How can persistent shoplifters be deterred if short sentences are abolished?
Home Secretary.
Well, he's asking me a question relating to my previous brief, but he will be pleased to know that I expect the new Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor to be setting out proposals for dealing with, in particular, prolific shoplifters based on some of the conversations and exchanges he and I have had. I know this is a big problem, but the government will have a response to tackle the scourge of prolific shoplifting.
Lee Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had constituents contact me yesterday from the Pound Street Mosque and the Riverside Centre Mosque who had heard comments from the Unite the Kingdom rally about Islam not being welcome in this country or welcome in Europe. How can neighbourhood policing help reassure my constituents and the 3.9 million practising Muslims in this country that they have the right to practice their faith without fear?
Well, freedom of conscience, religion and belief is a protected freedom in this country. It's part of the rights and responsibilities that we have as citizens of this great nation, and nothing should get in the way of that. Freedom of speech is also a protected freedom in this country, and there will always be some crossover between these freedoms, but I'm absolutely clear, and this is why in answer to the previous question, there is a line between content that is offensive, rude, ill-mannered, and incitement to violence, incitement to hatred. Those are crimes, and it is important that we police that line between these types of comments effectively so that everybody in this country can have confidence in our policing system, but also confidence in exercising their rights under the law of our land.
The message.
Speaker. Last week was Rural Crime Action Week, and I recently had an opportunity to join Cambridgeshire Constabulary's Rural Crime Action Team to see the work that they do, despite having to cover a huge county of 8 constituencies with just 14 officers. Those officers have recently been reallocated from being designated as operational support unit officers to being neighbourhood policing officers, thus bolstering the number of officers the government would classify as neighbour police and helping the target of 3,000 officers be reached. But these officers aren't new, and nor are they dedicated neighbourhood police. So can the Home Secretary explain to me why she's artificially inflating the numbers of neighbourhood policing while reclassifying those in specialist roles?
The government's policy position is to ensure that the policing resource that we have focuses on neighbourhood policing, and that is because we know that visible neighbourhood policing increases confidence that communities have in going about their business. It helps us take our town centres back from those who indulge in low-level criminality. It's not low-level because it harms people and their confidence in their own communities, and that's why we make no secret and we are not ashamed of our neighbourhood policing guarantee.
Lincoln Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very simple question. Why are police numbers coming down under a Labour government?
Home Secretary.
This government is focusing on delivering neighbourhood policing. We are going to have 3,000 neighbourhood police officers by April of 2026, with 13,000, as we committed in our manifesto, by the end of the Parliament.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
5, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister, welcome.
This government remains committed to supporting Ukraine following Russia's vile, illegal invasion. I'd like to acknowledge, firstly, the warmth and generosity shown by so many local communities in supporting Ukrainians in the UK. Since the conflict began, over 300,000 Ukrainians have been offered temporary sanctuary through the dedicated Ukraine schemes. Ukrainians can still apply to the Homes for the Ukraine scheme with a UK sponsor, and once here, extend their stay to a total of 3.5 years, as recently announced.
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I start by congratulating the Minister and welcoming him to his place. A constituent of mine, Leslie, has been hosting and supporting a Ukrainian refugee, Ella, who after months of delay and difficulty has thankfully now received a visa extension. But Ella's case highlights the wider problems in the system: long waits, radio silence and a lack of communication, causing huge distress for those refugees and their hosts. Can the Minister set out, firstly, what is being done to improve visa applications generally, and secondly, if the government will consider re-looking at allowing Ukrainian refugees who don't want to or can't return to Ukraine the pathway and the chance of applying for indefinite leave to remain?
Minister.
Thank my honourable friend for her hard work in this area and for her congratulations. The UK government has been clear from the outset that the Ukraine schemes are temporary and do not offer a direct route to settlement. The extension of UP does reflect our strong humanitarian commitment, whilst also respecting, this is important, Ukraine's wish for its citizens to return when safe to support that future national recovery. The long-term position is under active consideration, and further details will be provided at the earliest opportunity.
Jessica Moore.
Question number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
The United Kingdom boasts a fantastic array of cities, each of which has a unique character and appeal, and in order to thrive, our city centres must be safe. That is why this government is putting policing back on the beat and bringing in stronger powers to crack down on shop theft and antisocial behaviour.
Jessica Morton.
Pleased to see Newport City Council announced last week 300,000 for new CCTV in our city centre, and I also commend the work of Trade-in Standards, whose efforts have seized almost £2 million of illegal cigarettes and vapes. But whilst Trade-in Standards and the police are working really hard to tackle this particular issue, the time-limited nature of shop closure orders means these shops often quickly reopen. So what more can the government do to strengthen powers to stop this?
Minister.
Can I welcome the activities that have been occurring that my honourable friend talks about in Newport City. That's good news to hear. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill will strengthen enforcement and crack down on rogue retailers, and there are a raft of other measures in that bill that will crack down on these pernicious crimes. So I look forward to talking more with her about those.
Dave Dugan.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes crime wears a suit, as happened in Brecon in my constituency, where Mackie Motors Brecon had equity in their vehicles stolen by a bank, a French bank based here in London, and through mendacity or incompetence or both, they then turned the oxygen of that business of 50 years off. I've met with some Home Office ministers and Treasury ministers to try and get around this, but my constituent has been to the FCA, who told them to go to the police, who then told them to go back to the FCA, who then told them to go to citizens' advice. You couldn't make this cluster fanco up. Isn't it the case that in the UK today, if you're an SME in dispute with a bank, the FCA will demonstrate that they are neither use nor ornament?
Minister.
Well, I can't comment on the specific details because obviously I'm not aware of them, but very happy to have that conversation. I've had SMEs in my constituency who've had similar issues, so very happy to take that forward.
Is Swallow.
Question 7, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Forgive me, I've turned the wrong page, Mr. Speaker. Can I, with permission, group this question with questions 8 and 20? Antisocial behaviour causes untold distress and misery across our communities. Under the previous government, the response to this menace was weak and ineffective, and visible neighbourhood policing declined dramatically. This government is putting that right by rebuilding neighbourhood policing, introducing respect orders to tackle persistent perpetrators, and stronger powers to seize dangerous and deafening off-road bikes.
Yes. Yeah. Please Swallow.
Can I thank the almost 500 constituents who have responded to my summer road safety campaign? One of the top issues raised is the use of antisocial off-road bikes, and I warmly welcome new measures in the Crime and Policing Bill to allow the police to seize these bikes without warning. Will my honourable friend also look at the sale of these off-road bikes and what can be done to restrict them at source?
Yeah. Minister.
I think the scale of the number of constituents who are responding to my honourable friend's survey shows that this is really important for our communities and something we have to get a grip of. There's been a worrying increase, of course, and as part of our Safer Streets mission, this government is cracking down on those crimes that make people feel unsafe in our communities, including snatch, theft, pickpocketing and robbery. And our Safer Streets initiative this summer has been running in town centres, and I think that has included my honourable friend's constituency as well. We aim to prevent crime and antisocial behaviour, and the sale of off-road bikes is at the heart of that.
The Ranger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Wrexham, North Wales Police are doing very important work to tackle persistent antisocial behaviour and low-level crime. But quite rightly, local people are seeking further reassurance that these issues will continue to be dealt with and tackled head-on. Will the Minister please update the House on how police recruitment and training is progressing in North Wales and beyond, so that communities like mine can feel safe and secure in the place they call home?
Minister.
As part of our commitment to restore neighbourhood policing, the neighbourhood policing programme, career pathway developed by the College of Policing, is creating a structured training pathway to professionalise neighbourhood policing, benefiting communities across England and Wales, including in Wrexham. And in terms of recruitment, North Wales Police has been allocated just over £2 million to support their projected neighbourhood policing growth over 25-26, which is made up of 26 additional police officers and 15 police community support officers.
Alex McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Gloucester, thanks to this government investing £1 million in neighbourhood policing and a further £1 million in its Safer Streets initiative, we have seen more police on our streets this summer, leading to an increase in arrests and seizures of illegal e-bikes and vapes. Now, as some of this funding comes to an end this autumn, can the Minister please update me on how she will ensure Gloucestershire Constabulary builds upon the great work it has done this summer to make Gloucester a safer place to live and work?
Can I thank my right honourable friend for his question, and it's encouraging to see the work that's been going on in his constituency. It is our intention to ensure the police have the resources that they need to do the jobs that we need them to do, whether that's in hotspot policing, neighbourhood policing, tackling antisocial behaviour. We will change the legislation here in Parliament to make sure they have the powers that they need and make sure they have the resources they need to act locally in the interests of our constituents.
Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Speaker. Local youth provision that goes hand in hand with a decrease in antisocial behaviour committed by young people, with even something as simple as a ping-pong table in a closed shop being able to make a difference in a community. So could the Minister help outline what work she's doing with the Department for Education and the Treasury to make sure that we solve this problem once and for all and we don't just move the problem on and move people around the place?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman is absolutely right. If we want to make sure people are not getting into crime, we need to make sure they have activities and things to do. And we are working very closely both with the Department of Education and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to make sure we have a programme of activities for our young people that gives them things to do, a purpose in life, mentoring, support, so that they can take the right path.
Miller.
Speaker, residents in my constituency living in Long Hanborough have described to me a summer of misery characterised by antisocial behaviour in the local playing field. I also understand that the local rural policing constabulary do not have sufficient vehicles for all of their officers to be out at any one time. So is the Minister satisfied that Thames Valley Police have sufficient resources in their rural community policing forces to deal with antisocial behaviour in our villages?
Minister.
Antisocial behaviour is pernicious wherever it happens, and of course we need to make sure that the police have the right resources, and as the Home Secretary has already said, the police allocation decisions will be made in the autumn, but I'm very happy to have a conversation with him about the particular issues he's facing in his constituency to make sure we are, where it comes to issues like police cars and vehicles, we are making the most of taxpayers' money and making as many efficiencies as we can on that front.
Farron.
Speaker, in line with my honourable friend from Maidenhead and his comments about how we best tackle young people in preventing antisocial behaviour amongst them, does she agree that it's really important that outdoor education is integrated in to the government's youth strategy? Its first draft made no reference to it whatsoever, and yet outdoor learning is proven to broaden people's horizons, give people other things to do with their lives and make them much less likely to fall into antisocial behaviour.
Minister.
I'm happy to take that question on board. I was speaking to the heads of all the violence reduction units across the country today, and it's clear some of the most important work they are able to do is partnership with other agencies and other bodies, whether that's education or our youth services or others. We need to pull the resources that we have together and use what works and follow the evidence on this.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
This government is committed to tackling bureaucracy and is investing tens of millions of pounds this year in technology to get officers onto the front line. This includes working with police to reduce admin using tools such as automated redaction and AI, and deploying cutting-edge technology such as facial recognition and video response to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of policing.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I recently met with the Chief Constable of Leicestershire, and he explained some of the red tape that they face. Between April 2024 and March 2025, they used 14,769 use of force forms. These are for when people go into handcuffs. Now, 6,500 of those were for people who were complicit and were happy to be handcuffed. Each time they do that, it takes on average 23 minutes to fill in one of those forms. That could be taken away and would save about £50,000 for the force. So would the Minister look at this, and would you meet with me to discuss some of the other practical red tape that we could remove to make policing much more streamlined?
Minister.
We need to make sure policing are doing what we need them to be doing, that they're out on the street solving crime and not tied up in red tape. That's absolutely sure. The way to be tough on crime is to be smart on crime, and I'm very happy to look at his suggestions.
Sam Cullen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I recently met a police officer in Cambridgeshire who told me that force has a policy requiring all footage from stop searches to be reviewed by a more senior officer. They feel that due to this, they're discouraged from doing proactive patrols due to the extra work it adds to already stretched supervisors. So will the Policing Minister write to Cambridge's Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner urging him to be more proactive on challenging these issues so that our frontline police can spend as much time as possible out in our communities?
Minister.
Well, look, I'm sorry that his Police and Crime Commissioner is not doing what is needed here. We need to empower police to be out doing what they do best, not creating barriers for them to do so.
Ben Goldsworth.
Question 10, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Shop theft hit a record high in the last year of the previous government, but our crime and policing bill will remove the effective immunity for shop thefts under £200. We are investing over £7 million to support police efforts against retail crime over the next 3 years, including supporting a specialist team to target organised gangs and offenders, and we also back the Tackling Retail Crime Together strategy, which with industry and police are collaborating to better target perpetrators.
Ben Goldsworth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As a proud member of Usdaw and formerly the youngest deputy store manager for Halfords in the east of England, I know first-hand the fear that shoplifting causes to retail workers. What action is my honourable friend taking to ensure that the police have the powers they need to use the full force of the law to tackle those who steal from our shops?
Minister.
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and I think this is something that probably every Member of Parliament in this House hears about and knows how distressing it is, and the intimidation of shop workers must stop. The thieves who target shops and are stealing to order must be targeted. We are repealing the legislation which makes shoplift theft of and below £200 a summary-only offence, which will send a clear message that we will not tolerate this crime.
Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recently, AC Models in my constituency of Eastleigh was targeted by a series of thefts which cost owners Anna and Clive thousands of pounds. Yet the shoplifter was ordered to pay them just £240 in compensation. With retail losses due to theft at record highs, what measures is the government taking to support small businesses that are preyed on by shoplifters?
Minister.
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for that question? We need to protect retail workers. We need to do more to tackle shop theft, as I've just outlined. We are doing just that, and I am very sorry to her constituents who have had to suffer this terrible crime, and we need to make sure the message is loud and clear that we will not accept it.
Andrew Still.
Question number 11, please, Mr Speaker.
Home Secretary.
Mr Speaker, clearly the balance between the human rights of illegal migrants and the wider public interest is out of kilter. This government will legislate to limit the application of Article 8 of the European Convention, the right to a family life. This will mean we can deport and remove more illegal migrants, and we will pursue international reform too. In my previous role, I was already involved in conversations with other member states of the Council of Europe, and this government will continue that work.
Andrew Sturdy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and can I welcome the Home Secretary to her position. Obviously, every new appointment comes with an opportunity to take a fresh look at the matters that are impacting on things. And clearly, since the 1950s, when the Refugee Convention and the European Convention on Human Rights were first written, the world has changed significantly. And successive governments have tweaked various bits of this working with partners. But does she agree that if we're going to stop the small boats that are crossing the Channel and illegal migration, they're going to need more wholesale change than that?
Home Secretary.
Well, I hope he will take a bit of time to look at the speech I made to the Council of Europe just before the summer recess. I made a very similar argument to the one that he's saying. For those of us who are supporters of the Convention and who want to see it stand the test of time, we have to recognise that a treaty formed many decades ago in a different reality. We should have a conversation about whether it's still fit for purpose. It is a conversation that others in Europe are having as well, and we are taking a leading role in those discussions, and we will pursue both international reform but also reform of our domestic legislation as well.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. By leaving the EU, the Tories tore up our returns agreement with the EU and completely failed to negotiate a new one, which this government has now rightly rectified. Does the Home Secretary agree that the Tories and Reform are in cloud cuckoo land if they think the French would have signed a returns deal with us if we had left the ECHR?
Well, my honourable friend is right to point out that the being signed up to the European Convention actually does underpin other international agreements that we have with partners. It underpins the Good Friday Agreement. It also underpins the current treaty we have with the French for the France returns pilot as well. It's why I think that we should be responsible in taking forward a conversation on reform of the Convention, but that is the approach we are taking. I was doing so in my previous role, and I will carry on doing so as the Home Secretary.
Shadow Home Secretary Criswell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And let me start by warmly welcoming the Home Secretary to her place. I'm very much looking forward to the exchanges that we will have so long as the Prime Minister leaves her in post. Now, when it comes to human rights, doesn't she accept that tinkering around the edges simply won't work? Now, she said in her answer a second ago that she wants to see the ECHR reformed, but her own Attorney General, Lord Hermer, said just 4 days ago that ECHR reform is, and I quote, a political trick. So perhaps she and the Attorney General should get themselves on the same page. Given her own Attorney General says that reform is not possible, doesn't she agree, as my honourable friend said a moment ago, that more fundamental changes are needed? Because this year has been the worst in history for illegal immigrants crossing the Channel, up 38% compared to last year. Only radical change will fix this mess. So will she back the Conservative plans to completely disapply the Human Rights Act and ensure that all illegal immigrants are immediately removed upon arrival?
Can I just say, please, you know the score, you know how we've got to get through questions. When colleagues don't get in, they're going to blame the Shadow Home Secretary. So please, try and help others. Home Secretary.
Mr Speaker, I have to confess on that performance I found myself rather missing the Shadow Justice Secretary. He says we're tinkering at the edges. He could not be more wrong. We have a proper plan to look at legislative reform. But frankly, tinkering at the edges would have been fantastic under them because actually their own track record is they did, frankly, nothing. Sod all in 14 years. And suddenly they've found their reforming instincts now that they're in opposition. It's this government that will take forward domestic as well as international reform.
Please do it. Right, John Cooper.
12, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
The process of selecting a respected and independent chair for the National Inquiry into group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse is underway. A dedicated victims and survivors panel is supporting this process. The inquiry terms of reference will, of course, follow, shaped through a public consultation. The inquiry will be trauma-informed and time-limited, as recommended by Baroness Casey, ensuring accountability, truth and change.
John Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It beggars belief that this is inching along at such dreadful pace. With the Scottish Government now ruling out an inquiry there, will the Home Secretary please commit to fast-tracking, for the sake of victims, a thoroughgoing inquiry into this grooming gang scandal?
I think for the sake of victims who we all think about today, we must make sure we get this right. We know with the previous inquiry, the Baroness J inquiry, how there were multiple issues with the chair at the start of that inquiry. That inquiry took many years, and we want to make sure we follow what Baroness Casey has recommended, that we do this right, that we do this properly, that we do this alongside those victims that we are talking to, and must, of course, be leading the way on this. We will make sure we get the right strategy, and it's for Scotland and the Scottish Government to decide if they have a similar strategy. And of course, it's important to say we are putting in place lots of other policies to tackle these kind of crimes alongside the very important national inquiry.
Sarah Welsh, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This side of the House raised the issue of a national statutory inquiry in January. The government attempted to block those calls until they were forced into a U-turn in June. On the 2nd of September, the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State said, and I quote, "This government will not lose any more time in pursuing truth and justice for victims and survivors." And yet, here we stand today. No start date, no chair announced, and no terms of reference agreed. The victims need actions, not words. So will the Minister please stand up and tell the victims of these abhorrent crimes when the national inquiry will begin, or will the Secretary of State have to be forced into action just like the last?
Minister.
To start with, I'm not going to take any lessons from the Honourable Lady after the previous inquiry wasn't implemented in any way, shape or form by the previous government. We, through the Crime and Policing Bill, are putting in place Baroness J's key recommendations, which is the right thing to do, and we will make sure with this inquiry that is so important, that has victims at the heart, that we make the right decisions on the chair and the terms of reference and the process of this, following the advice that Baroness Casey gave us. We will make sure, and the Honourable Lady will hear soon, but we will make sure this is the right chair, the right approach for those victims. We can do no less.
We now come to topicals. Bradley Thomas.
Beautifully done.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to use this statement to address this weekend's events. On Saturday, well over 100,000 protesters marched in London. In doing so, many exercised an ancient right, the right to peaceful protest. But not everyone did. Some turned on the brave police officers who were there to keep the peace. 26 officers were injured and 24 protesters were arrested. Those violent thugs will face the full force of the law. But those who turned to violence on Saturday do not represent who this country really is. When a foreign billionaire calls on our citizens to fight against our ancient democracy, I know this is met by the vast majority with a shake of the head. And that's because we are, in truth, a tolerant country. And yes, we are a diverse one too. You can be English with roots here that stretch back 1,000 years, but you can also be English and look like me. The St. George's Cross and the Union Jack belong to us all. They are symbols of unity, a kingdom united, and they must never be used to divide us.
Bradley Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the Home Secretary to her position. Does she have any plans to introduce a statutory cap on inbound migration?
Home Secretary.
I thank him for his question. I have one job, and that's to secure our borders. I'll do whatever it takes, but what I will never do is take the approach of the previous government, which was led by gimmicks and false promises which were never met.
Mayor Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Antisocial behaviour, including cars producing excessive noise along Southend Seafront and Westcliff Road, has long affected residents in my constituency. Southend City Council, Essex Police and I are working hard to address these issues. Can the Secretary of State say out how the government is going further and faster to tackle antisocial behaviour, and how delivering on our commitment to have a named neighbourhood police officer in every community will directly benefit residents?
£200 million has been made available in forces this year to kickstart the delivery of 13,000 more neighbourhood officers across England and Wales. Very happy to talk to my honourable friend about the issues he's facing. We must tackle antisocial behaviour and crime.
Senator Home Secretary, Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Home Secretary accept her predecessor was moved because this government is failing on immigration? Indeed, 75% of the public think the government is failing. This year has been the worst in history for illegal migrants, up 38%. So let me try again. Will the Home Secretary take this opportunity to commit to real action and back our plans to disapply the Human Rights Act in relation to all immigration matters and immediately remove every illegal immigrant upon arrival?
Home Secretary.
I'll take no lessons from anyone sitting opposite a government that utterly failed on both legal and illegal migration. It is this government and this Home Secretary that will clean up their mess.
Crystal.
Brass neck when this has been the worst year in history, and it's gone up by 38%. Now, Mr. Speaker, press reports this week suggest that a handful of illegal migrants might be removed to France, so she's been quite silent about that so far. But this has been amounts to only 5% of people crossing. Does she accept that allowing 95% of illegal immigrants to stay will be no deterrent? And will she commit to publishing full data on a weekly basis?
Well, on the subject of a brass neck, I think I'll have to buy him a mirror so he can stare one right in the face. As I say, I'm not going to take any lessons from him or anybody opposite. It is this government that has got removals up to 35,000. It is this government that's got asylum decisions moving again, and it is this government that has struck that historic agreement with France, and we're working with our partners in France to get those flights off the ground.
Peter Dowd.
Speaker, will the Minister give an update on the work of the Defending Democracy Task Force, please?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to him, Mr. Speaker, because let me say the targeted intimidation and harassment of elected representatives is completely unacceptable. The Defending Democracy Task Force works to ensure the safety and security of all electoral process, democratic institutions and to strengthen democratic society. We are conducting a review of the harassment and intimidation faced by elected representatives. It has also concluded a review of transnational repression, and we have updated Parliament on this. I hope this will be a shared endeavour right across the House.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Lisa Smart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This weekend, as the Home Secretary mentioned, Elon Musk used a rally alongside the convicted criminal, so-called Tommy Robinson, to call for the dissolution of Parliament and to incite violence on our streets. Given the seriousness of a high-profile figure apparently urging attacks on our democracy, could the Home Secretary set out what assessment the Home Office has made of these statements and what steps are being taken across government to respond to them and to protect our democracy?
Okay.
Well, I say to the Honourable Lady, there is both a legal question here and a political question. On the legal question, in any case, whether the one she raises or another, it is always for the police and the Crown Prosecution Service to make decisions independently as to whether the law has been broken and charges should be brought. You would never expect a minister to comment. It would be improper to do so. But on the political question, let me say this. The words that were used at the weekend are abhorrent, and I know that the vast majority of people in this country will feel the same way, whether you're a hostile state or a hostile foreign billionaire. No one gets to mess with British democracy.
Bill Brickle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the APPG on anti-corruption and responsible tax, which I chair, had the opportunity to meet with officers from the National Economic Crime Centre last week and discuss the work that NEC is doing to disrupt money laundering and tax evasion, including through their landmark Operation Machinize. High street money laundering is of huge concern to me, with an explosion of cash-intensive businesses over recent years seeking to hide beneath the veneer of respectability in order to conceal their dirty money. So what measures is the Minister taking to empower trading standards, local councils, HMRC and law enforcement to tackle this issue head-on?
Well, I'm grateful to him and the work of the APPG. The government is absolutely committed to tackling high street money laundering to deliver safer streets and economic growth, working closely with partners through multi-agency initiatives like Operation Machinize. We have strengthened powers via the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act and funded 475 new roles under the Anti-Money Laundering and Asset Recovery Programme to detect and investigate offences.
Susan Murray.
Just over a week ago, nearly 1,000 peaceful protesters, including priests and pensioners, were arrested in a single day for opposing the ban on Palestinian action. Yet over the weekend, at the Unite the Kingdom protest, 26 police officers were injured and 25 arrests were made. Does the Minister agree with my constituents in Mid Dumbartonshire that this raises serious questions about proportionality, and will she consider reassessing the prescription of Palestinian action?
Minister.
Any attack on the police is utterly shameful, and the right to peaceful protest is a cornerstone of our democracy. It is a freedom that we protect fiercely. But Palestine Action's activities have met the thresholds established in the Terrorism Act of 2000. The organisation has conducted an escalating campaign involving sustained criminal damage to national security infrastructure, intimidation and alleged violence, including the use of weapons, resulting in serious injuries to individuals.
Mr. Osborne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Weaponisation of social media has become a real cancer in our society, with MPs and others being targeted. What steps is the government taking to looking at hostile state threats in relation to social media that might be being used to undermine our democracy?
He's right to raise this. New and emerging AI technology has the potential to amplify threats to democracy, including through the use of hyper-realistic bots used to spread disinformation and misinformation at speed. The government is absolutely committed to addressing the threats, including ensuring social media platforms have the right systems in place to identify and tackle harmful material which breach their terms of service.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Attorney-General has claimed that we need the European Convention and the European Court to solve the illegal migration crisis, an extraordinary claim. Can the Minister please explain, therefore, how Australia have managed to tackle their migration problem and how the US are managing to implement our Rwanda plan, all outside the European Convention, which the Attorney-General says we need?
Well, the honourable gentleman has heard the Home Secretary's point on the Convention itself. But what is clear, gimmicks like Rwanda don't work. £700 million for merely 4 volunteers to go. What works is effective processing. What works is quick decisions. What works is quick removals. And that's what we're going to get under this government. That's what you don't get from those who carp from the opposite benches.
Louise Haig.
Mr. Speaker. 15-year-old Harvey Wilgoose was murdered earlier this year when attending his school by a fellow pupil. His murderer has now been convicted, and a national child safeguarding review panel has been set up. But time and time again, these panels make the same recommendations that fail to implement the kinds of learnings and culture change that will ensure another tragedy like this doesn't happen again. Will the Home Secretary reassure Harvey's family that she will make sure that those panel recommendations are implemented and that we can avoid any family like Harvey's suffering that same tragedy again?
Minister.
I thank my right honourable friend for that question, and yes, of course, we offer our sympathies to the family of Harvey, whose death is a heartbreaking tragedy that has devastated, I think, the entire community, and our thoughts remain with his family and friends. And of course, we recognise that pattern. I've seen it too in my own constituency, and that's why we are creating a Child Protection Authority, as recommended in the previous inquiry, to ensure that there is effective national oversight to ensure lessons are learned.
Jess Brownfelder.
Mr. Speaker, Chichester City Centre has seen a rise in antisocial behaviour, particularly from those on e-bikes and e-scooters. Residents are understandably concerned about these bikes that are quite often modified and the speed that they can go. So what is the Minister doing to give Sussex Police powers to identify, remove and, most importantly, dispose of these e-bikes that are ridden so recklessly on our streets?
I know this is a concern that many members in this House will share. The Crime and Policing Bill will give the police powers to seize vehicles being used anti-socially, but happy to have a conversation with her about what more we need to do.
Caroline Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A report from Charity Justice in Care last year highlighted that a lack of regulation is allowing unscrupulous business owners to exploit vulnerable people. Nottingham Trent University showed that 90% of hand car wash businesses operate in a way that makes them high risk of forced or compulsory labour. Will the government consider licensing these sectors, such as hand car washes, to improve compliance and prevent illegal workers and modern slavery?
Minister.
It is our consideration and our view as the Home Office that the most important safeguard is right-to-work checks. That's why we're strengthening them through the Borders Bill that is making its way through Parliament, but that has to be underpinned with really rigorous enforcement. That's why I'm pleased that enforcement visits are up 50% in the last year, as are arrests.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 2018 definition of Islamophobia said the debate about rape gangs was, quotes, a form of anti-Muslim racism. Among other alarming things, it said raising concerns about entryism into government by extremists, which is an established tactic of the Muslim Brotherhood, is Islamophobic. The Home Secretary endorsed that definition. Does she still believe addressing the religion of rape gang members or identifying Muslim Brotherhood entryism is Islamophobic, or does she now disown that definition?
I think that definition was seeking to give context to patterns of behaviour. But let me be clear for him and the whole House. There is absolutely no excuse or no hiding the criminality of those who engage in the heinous crime involved with the rape gangs and grooming gangs. And that is why this government KC recommendations and have that national inquiry. He knows that the government is currently working with the working group looking at a definition of Islamophobia, and we've been absolutely clear that we will not pursue any measures that would impinge on our ancient right of freedom of speech.
Jill Jarman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ensuring our town centres are safe, vibrant and welcoming is hugely important in Clwyd North. I warmly welcomed this government's Safe Streets Summer Initiative in Rhyl and Colwyn Bay, and from walkabouts recently with local police, it's clear that a strong community police presence is crucial to tackle antisocial behaviour where it arises. So will the Home Secretary make sure that North Wales Police have all the resources it needs all year round in Rhyl, Denbigh, Abergele and Colwyn Bay to help build back our town centres?
We've had really good feedback so far from over 500, forgive me, town centres who've had the Safer Streets Summer Initiative. That initiative finishes at the end of September, so we'll have proper analysis then. But of course, it is our priority to make sure our police have the resources they need all year round.
Dr. Neil Shastri-Hurst.
Thank you very much. Finally reduce compared to rise under this government.
Minister.
Targeting shoplifting, as we've been talking about earlier in this question time, is an absolute priority for this government. We have a raft of interventions. We're taking legislative action to protect our retail workers who have been particularly affected by a massive increase in abuse as well as the rise in crime.
Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I congratulate and welcome the new team to the front bench. A week is a long time. I had a promise to meet a previous minister to discuss the immigration system, because one of the challenges the Home Secretary has inherited is a broken processing system. As one of the largest customers to the Home Office for my constituents, I know where the problems are. I would welcome a meeting with a minister if the Home Secretary would agree.
Well, I share my right honourable friend's very important interest in that issue, and I never miss a chance to meet with her and be very glad to do so.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
Can I welcome the new frontbench team to their place? The previous ministerial team had been clear that they wanted to stop the use of large sites to house asylum seekers, but there have been some indications that that position may have changed. Could the Home Secretary or Minister clarify what the position is, and could they confirm that if they are changing the position, they will learn the lessons of what went wrong previously?
I'm very grateful for the question from the Chair of the Select Committee, and I look forward to working with her and her committee in their important work. We have made a significant commitment about particularly the closure of asylum hotels, which is something that's crucial for public confidence. We are looking at big sites, looking at MOD sites. That, I think, is a matter of record. We, of course, will look very closely at the history in this space and make sure anything we do is effective and sustained.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. Firstly, can I warmly welcome the Home Secretary and her team to their place. The Home Secretary will be aware of the recent horrific attack and rape of a Sikh woman in Oldbury, my constituency, during which racist abuse was reportedly directed at the victim. The case is being treated as a hate crime and the suspect is now under arrest. So can the Home Secretary tell me what steps she is taking to support West Midland Police in securing justice in this case and to addressing the wider concerns of the Sikh and our ethnic minority communities regarding the increase of racism in the public discourse, which can lead to targeted violence and damage community safety?
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question. The horror of a sexual assault motivated by race or ethnicity is absolutely appalling. I'm sure the whole House will join me in condemning such crimes in the strongest possible terms. On the specifics of this case, it is an ongoing criminal investigation. It is imperative that we allow the justice system to do its work. I would urge anyone with any further information about the case to get in touch with West Midlands Police as soon as possible, and I hope he and the whole House will have heard my comments earlier in the session today that this government will not stand for any incitement to racial hatred or violence, and it is imperative and I think incumbent on all members of this House to make sure we all jointly, collectively hold that line.
Sir John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister referred earlier in an answer to the increasing use by police of live facial recognition. While this may well have some effect in tackling crime, it is being used without any legal framework and no national instructions. Can she say when those are going to be put in place?
Minister.
Can I thank him for his question? Of course, facial recognition is being used for very high harm individuals in a very controlled way, and there is guidance as to how that should be used, but happy to have a conversation with him further. I'm aware that members across this House have raised the issue of the framework within which it operates.
Jonathan Hinder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I pay tribute to my former colleagues for the way they professionally policed the protests over the weekend, and I wish those injured a speedy recovery. Now, Mr. Speaker, police officers cannot join a union, and they only have one staff association to choose from. That's the Police Federation, the chief executive of which reportedly took home over £600,000 last year. Will the new ministerial team commit to reviewing whether this monopoly can really serve the interests of our brave police officers?
Minister.
We need to make sure that our police officers are given the best support they can be through the Police Federation. That is the vehicle through which they are supported through any incidents that they have. I will be working very closely with them to make sure they are doing the right thing on behalf of their members.
Paul Kohler.
Mr. Speaker, I would not be here today without Wimbledon Police Station. In 2014, I was saved from a murderous attack by two brave officers from that station. Wimbledon Police Station is now under threat, with this front counter due to close. Does the Home Secretary agree with me? Local police stations like Wimbledon's are critical to neighbourhood policing and community safety.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear about his incident. That must have been absolutely terrifying. Of course, we need to make sure our neighbourhood police are responsive, that they are there when we need them most. That's why we are targeting the resources we have to make sure we have neighbourhood policing, but also the response teams must be there when we need them, and through any means to get in touch with them, whether that's on the phone, whether that's online, or whether it's in person, we need to make sure they're there.
Bishop.
Police officers up and down the country, once reaching 20 years service, such as my previous colleagues, receive a long-term service medal. However, those police community support officers don't seem to receive any recognition for long service. I wonder if the Minister would agree to look into providing similar recompense and recognition for the service that PCSOs provide.
Minister.
Well, I would hesitate to announce new policy in week one, but I would certainly think there needs to be some kind of recognition for our PCSOs who do such an incredible job across all our communities.
Rosenthal.
Mr. Speaker, is the Home Secretary aware that 20% of officers in the Metropolitan Police are currently either suspended or on restricted duties, with senior officers warning that the situation is unsustainable? So, does she agree that we need to urgently review both welfare and disciplinary processes within our police services so that towns such as Romford can get more police actually patrolling our streets?
Minister.
I agree, we need to make sure that resources are targeted in the places that we need them. We've made significant reforms to police standards already, ensuring officers, for example, who fail background checks are sacked and gross misconduct leads to dismissal. But we need to make sure this is right and proper and appropriate, and we need to make sure our police are out on the streets where we need them to be. And it will be a conversation I'd be very happy to have with him, and indeed I'll be having with the Met, and I already have with the Commissioner, about how these incidents are being operated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, our US allies pulled back from the Global Engagement Centre, their international effort to tackle cyber threats. So what steps is the Minister taking to ensure that our democracy is protected from foreign interference and cyber threats and misinformation?
Minister.
Well, I'm grateful to him. We take all of those threats incredibly seriously. We hosted the 5 countries' ministerial meetings with our American, Canadian, Australian and Kiwi allies just last week. We work incredibly closely with our partners to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to support UK businesses in the UK and doing everything that we can to target the perpetrators of these attacks.
Alex Bro.
Mr. Speaker, people in my constituency of North East Hampshire have raised with me problems of hair coursing, theft, speeding and fly tipping. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss how we can tackle the wide range of crimes in rural areas?
Yeah. Minister.
Happy to meet with you, Honourable Lady.
Right, that completes questions. Will that front bench change over? Before I call the Minister, I wish to make a brief statement. I found out only this morning that the charges against the 2 individuals relating to espionage for the Chinese authorities were to be dropped. I don't think it's good. We do not, of course, discuss the detail of security matters relating to Parliament on the floor of the House. But given the very important issues raised by this case, I'm asking officials to consider whether any further steps which should be taken, operational, strategic or legal, to ensure that all those who work in this Parliament are able to undertake their activities securely and without interference. I am a very unhappy Speaker with what's happened. The fact that for 2 years, and it's taken till today for somebody to withdraw this case, that is not good or good enough. Right, let us now come to the statement. Minister Jarvis.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Crown Prosecution Service decided not to proceed with the prosecution of Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, who'd been charged with espionage for China under the Official Secrets Act of 1911. Now, I know that members right across the House will be aware that the charges related to allegations of Chinese espionage within Parliament, and they will want reassurance, as will you, Mr. Speaker. Now, many members will be as extremely disappointed as I am that there will now not be a trial. The decision not to proceed with this prosecution is an independent one for the CPS to make in its role as the UK's independent prosecuting authority. However, I want to be clear that the government remains gravely concerned about the threat of Chinese espionage. Parliament and our democracy are sacrosanct, and any attempt by any foreign power to infiltrate or interfere with parliamentary proceedings is completely unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I therefore want to set out that the measures that the government is taking to tackle any residual risks arising from this case and to outline the wider approach the government is taking to protecting our democracy and countering state threats, including those from China. Mr. Speaker, the decision by the CPS related to charges under the Official Secrets Act of 1911, which was the relevant legislation in force at the time. It is well known that state threats legislation had not kept pace with the changing threats that we face. The Official Secrets Act was passed to counter the threat from German spies before the First World War. It referred to espionage as obtaining any sketch, plan, model, article or note or other document or information which might be useful to an enemy. Clearly, that language, drafted well over 100 years ago, does not now reflect the types of espionage or state threats that we face in the modern day, nor the breadth of states who engage directly in this activity. This is why the UK has, with cross-party support, passed and now commenced the National Security Act. This legislation replaced the Official Secrets Act of 1911 and brings new criminal offences and powers to bear against the full range of modern-day state threats. Moreover, the National Security Act is state agnostic, removing the unhelpful enemy language from the Official Secrets Act and focusing on the malign activity we are all concerned about. The National Security Act also introduced the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, which the government brought into force on the 1st of July. FIRS encourages transparency, strengthening the resilience of our democratic institutions against covert influence, and gives our intelligence agencies and law enforcement additional tools to detect, deter, and disrupt and prosecute state threat actors. It requires that any foreign influence in our democracy, including from China, must be declared. Mr. Speaker, we can now be confident that should cases of espionage or state threats be uncovered in the future, we will be in a much better place to prosecute them under the new National Security Act. Now, I know that this case sits at the very heart of our democracy. So, Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. The government will not tolerate any state threats to the UK and its democratic institutions. We will robustly challenge China when necessary, as we would challenge any country for unacceptable behaviour on our soil. I can confirm that the Foreign Office has démarched the Chargé d'Affaires at the Chinese Embassy in London to make clear that we will not tolerate any activity that interferes in our democracy. MI5 are considering the provision of additional advice to those most at risk of being targeted by state-led espionage. And the government is taking robust action to counter state threats and continues to build up the UK's resilience. In April, we established a new cross-government state threats unit to better coordinate our response to state threats. And as I set out following the recently completed review of transnational repression, new training modules on identifying and countering state threats are being offered to all 45 territorial polices through the College of Policing and are mandatory for counter-terrorism policing officers. And we have committed to legislate as soon as parliamentary time allows to take forward the recommendations of Jonathan Hall KC, the independent reviewer of terrorism and state threats legislation. This includes creating a new prescription-style tool for state threats. As the former Foreign Secretary set out in his statement to the House following the conclusion of the China audit, we are investing £600 million in our intelligence services to support them in detecting and disrupting state threats to the UK. And in September, the National Cyber Security Centre co-sealed a US-led technical advisory calling out Chinese state-sponsored cyber threat actors targeting global networks, including in the UK. Now, I know that there will be calls to go further, and I want to reassure the House and the country that we will keep all tools under review and act as necessary. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, the safety and security of our Parliament is of the utmost importance, and that is why the National Protective Security Authority will issue new protective security guidance to parliamentarians and political staff on the protection against foreign interference and espionage. This guidance outlines the potential risks we all may face in our day-to-day work and how we can all better protect ourselves. I urge colleagues to read and follow the advice once issued. I also urge members to take up the National Cyber Security Centre's important opt-in service for members of both houses. This allows the NCSC to alert individuals if they identify evidence of malicious activity on their personal devices or accounts, and swiftly advise them on steps to take to protect their information. Mr. Speaker, the Strategic Defence Review was clear that China presents a sophisticated and persistent challenge. And as the National Security Strategy reinforced, instances of China's espionage, interference in our democracy and undermining of our economic security has increased in recent years. As I have set out, we are addressing those threats, but there are also opportunities that we need to grasp as we navigate our complex relationship with China. The last government did not describe China as an enemy, and this government does not think that our relationship can be simplified down to a single word. Instead, we are taking a consistent, long-term approach to China, firmly rooted in the UK's global interests. Mr. Speaker, I would like to finish by paying tribute to our law enforcement, security and intelligence agencies who do so much to keep us all safe. They operate, often in secret of course, often in the shadows, often at great personal danger, but they have our enduring gratitude. While we are extremely disappointed with the outcome in this case, the legislation it relied on has already been changed. Should we need to go further, we will not hesitate to do what is necessary to keep our country safe. I commend this statement today.
Shadow Home Secretary Crisfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by thanking the Security Minister for the briefing and information he provided ahead of his statement. And let me also join the Security Minister in paying tribute to the officers both in our police force and in the security service who work so hard and take personal risks to keep us safe. Mr. Speaker, let's start with Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee assessment into China published a year or two ago. They found that China had penetrated, and I quote, every sector of our economy. And when the Security Minister a moment ago said that China merely posed a challenge, he was wrong, I think, to use that word. China poses a threat. They pose a threat because they participate and organise systemic espionage into our public institutions, including Parliament. They purloin intellectual property from universities and from companies, particularly in the technology sectors, and they routinely spy on the UK as a state. They also engage in transnational repression of Chinese citizens here, including running secret, undeclared police stations and putting bounties on the heads of individuals. So the word challenge, Mr. Speaker, is not strong enough. The state of China poses a threat. Now, the Security Minister said that the government would robustly challenge China, but I would just gently point out some of the decisions the government has taken in practice. We saw a signal back at the G7 last year when the Prime Minister was, I'm afraid to say, obsequious in dealing with President Xi, appearing to prioritise economic links above security considerations. We have also not seen any decision to place China in the enhanced tier of the first scheme, even though that regime has now been in place for several months, and the government appears to be viewing with favour the application for a new super embassy in London, which our allies, including America, are urging us not to consent, and which many of our intelligence services say will be used as a base for espionage activities. So the government's record on China, Mr. Speaker, causes deep concern. But of equal concern is this particular case, and Mr. Speaker, you set out why that is of particular concern to Parliament, given that the alleged espionage activities touch directly on Parliament and the way that MPs do their duty. Now, I have in front of me a briefing provided to the press by the CPS, dated April the 26th, 2024, when these charges were first laid. And this CPS briefing says that the subjects one of the subjects was commissioned over a period exceeding a year, between December 2021 and February 23, by a Chinese intelligence asset. 34 reports on what this note describes as very specific topics, some of which relate directly and personally to members of Parliament. One of the Deputy National Security Advisors told the CPS that he assessed this information to be, and I quote, directly or indirectly useful to the Chinese state. And he said this information was, and I quote, prejudicial to the safety or interests of the United Kingdom. Given the gravity of that assessment, it is astonishing these charges have now been withdrawn. The Crown Prosecution Service clearly assessed these allegations and the evidence against the law, against the 1911 Act, in 2024, and they found the test to have been met. So why is it today, over a year later, suddenly we're told the test is no longer met? So my question to the Security Minister is a simple one. Given the gravity of the charges I just read out, what has changed between last year and this year? Why is a case which met the threshold and met the test in April 2024 all of a sudden determined not to? And can I ask specifically, did anyone in government put any pressure on the Crown Prosecution Service in relation to this case? Did the government fully cooperate with the police and the security services and the CPS in providing the information required, including in relation to the definition of an enemy? Can the Security Minister give the House those express assurances? Because I certainly share the Speaker's concerns, and I'm sure the concerns of many others, that what appears to be extremely serious espionage, assessed as such in that written disclosure that I read out, assessed by the Deputy National Security Advisor as being prejudicial to our national interest, has all of a sudden, and with no explanation, been dropped, even though previously, just a year and a bit ago, it was assessed this case did meet the threshold. Mr. Speaker, this House and the country needs to know what exactly has changed.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me seek to address the points that the Shadow Home Secretary has made. Firstly, he raised the point about whether China constitutes a threat or not. I think I was very clear in the language that I have used. As he will know, and as the government set out in the Strategic Defence Review, China presents a sophisticated and persistent challenge. But the reality is that when in government, of course, there is an absolute requirement to cooperate with nations right around the world. So where there are areas that we need to challenge China, of course we will do so. Where there are areas that we need to cooperate, I'm sure that he and members on that side will completely understand that there are areas in terms of economic cooperation where we need to work closely with China. Then, of course, we will do so because it is absolutely in our national interest. I referenced the comments of the previous Foreign Secretary, and he might want to look back at the record in terms of what was said following on from the China audit. The previous Foreign Secretary was absolutely crystal clear. We will take a long-term strategic approach to China, which is rooted in the UK's national interest. I understand why the Shadow Home Secretary will want to boil down such a complex bilateral relationship into a single word. But the reality is that is neither helpful nor sensible to do so. Now, he won't be surprised to hear that I don't agree with his characterisations of what he described as the signals that this government has set to China. And in truth, Mr. Speaker, I won't be taking any lessons for him on that, not least, and I've said this to him previously, that it's not ever so long ago that there was a Conservative Prime Minister who took the lead of China to the pub. So when it comes to signals, I'm not sure that he speaks with a huge amount of authority on that particular issue. He spoke about furs, and he knows that the government's position is that no decision has been taken specifically with regard to the enhanced tier and China, and any decision that is taken by the government will be announced in the normal way. Furs is a crucial tool, and I'm proud that this government has got on and implemented it as of the 1st of July. He specifically raised, as I'm sure other honourable members will, the issue of the embassy in London. He will also know that China's application to build a new embassy in London is going through an independent planning process. A final decision on planning permission will be made in due course by the Secretary of State of Housing, Communities and Local Government. But what I can be absolutely clear about, both in terms of the specific point about furs, about the nature of the threat, about the embassy, is that national security has been and will continue to be a core priority for this government throughout the process. He asked me about the CPS decision, and I know that he understands that he's asking me about decisions made by the CPS that are entirely independent of government. This was an independent decision made by the CPS. And it isn't for any government minister to speculate on the reasons behind this decision. As I have said, as I have been crystal clear, ministers, the government are extremely disappointed with the outcome in this case, and we remain extremely concerned about the espionage threat posed to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I hope that the Intelligence and Security Committee will get a good chance to dig into what has happened in this place, because we are hampered in the Chamber, not able to look at sensitive issues. I also hope that the Minister will lend his weight to the approval of many senior members of this House prior to the last election. It got as far as the last Prime Minister to agree a committee to look at sensitive spending, but also sensitive issues. But at the end of the last in the summer, this government chose to reintroduce extradition arrangements with Hong Kong, despite the application of the Chinese Security Act. Given what the Minister said today, how can we square both those positions?
Well, let me say to her, as I hope that she knows, that this government hugely appreciates and respects the relationship we have with Hong Kongers. And we will absolutely ensure, through the processes that are in place, that nobody, whether they be a Hong Konger or any other nationality, would be extradited for reasons of political expediency. I can also point her to the important work that we take incredibly seriously around transnational repression. Previously made a statement to this House. I hope she and others understand with the seriousness with which we take these activities. We're working closely with our international allies, and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that the UK is a hard target to these threats, wherever they might originate from.
Lisa Smart, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and as always, I am very grateful to the Minister for advance sight of his statement. For years, the Chinese Communist Party has worked to undermine the democratic institutions and values that underpin our society. This House is all too aware of the warnings, not least from the Intelligence and Security Committee's excoriating report on China. That report made clear that the previous government lacked a coherent strategy for dealing with the threat posed by the Chinese state, and that insufficient resources had been committed to meet that challenge. So, Mr. Speaker, we expect to see better from this government. Mr. Speaker, we're faced with a case where two men, one of them a parliamentary researcher with close links to senior MPs, were accused of serious offences under the Official Secrets Act, only for the Crown Prosecution Service to now drop those charges due to insufficient evidence. In this context, the decision is deeply worrying. It raises serious questions about the UK's capacity to detect and prosecute espionage linked to hostile states, particularly China. So I ask the Minister, what specific issues with the evidence led the CPS to conclude that the threshold for prosecution was no longer met? And more broadly, Mr. Speaker, what does this outcome say about our preparedness to respond to threats from foreign intelligence services operating on our soil, even within the corridors of this Parliament? The government must make protecting our democracy and national security priority. That means implementing the recommendations of the ISC's China report in full, ensuring that we are not left exposed to foreign interference simply because our systems are not equipped to respond. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the Minister again today committed to introduce legislation for a prescription mechanism for state and state-linked bodies as soon as parliamentary time allows. So could the Minister update us on the timeline for bringing this forward and what its scope would be?
Well, I'm very grateful to her, as I always am, for the very sensible and reasonable way in which she has made her comments. And she raises a number of important observations, many of which I agree with. I do have to say to her what I've just said to the Shadow Home Secretary, that it would be completely inappropriate for me to speculate about the reasons why the CPS have sought to make this decision. I completely understand why Right Honourable and Honourable members would ask me about it, but I hope that they also understand that I'm not able to talk about why the CPS have decided to make this decision. That very much is a matter for them, not for government. In terms of the other points that she raised, let me give her an assurance that government does everything that we possibly can to ensure that the UK is a hard target to guard against those malign forces, wherever they may come from, who seek to infiltrate or interfere with our democratic processes. And we will ensure that both our security and intelligence services and agencies and law enforcement have got the necessary tools and resources they need to do the difficult job of guarding against the threats that we face. Obviously, as she understands very well, there is also a legislative framework around that, and that's why I understand she asked the question about Jonathan Hall KC and the recommendations that she has made recently. As she knows that we have made an absolute commitment that we will legislate as soon as we're able to do, and I can give her assurance that work to do that continues at pace.
Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. I think we have a duty, all democracies have a duty to protect it from its enemies. And I don't doubt our allies face exactly the same challenges, so I've been interested to know what discussions we've had with our allies about this very challenge. And secondly, the Minister mentioned that MPs in their offices would get new guidance. Can you commit to a date for that being issued? Thank you.
Well, the Honourable Member raises a very important point about our allies. Many of the threats, the challenges that we faced are shared ones, and that is precisely why the UK Government convened the 5 countries ministerial conference last week, and we were proud to host our allies from the Five Eyes nations, where we work very closely with them, along with other important international cooperation arrangements. So we do work very closely with our allies to ensure that collaboratively and collectively we are best able to guard against the threat that we face. In terms of the point about guidance, I can give him an assurance that we will seek to ensure that that guidance is in place as soon as possible. I would also point to the fact that I wrote to all members of this House just before recess with advice around protective security and other matters. But should any member feel that they need additional support, then working very closely with Mr Speaker and the Parliamentary Security Department, we will make sure that they get it.
Karen Bradley, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Minister has made the point that the charges that were brought were under the old legislation, the Official Secrets Act. That has now been superseded. So has he made an assessment of whether the charges would have proceeded had the new offences been in place at the time and charges brought under those new offences? And will he be working with ministerial colleagues, law enforcement and others to look at whether new offences are needed in this case and others?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, if I may, that's actually a very clever question from the Chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. But I hope that she will understand, given that this decision was communicated this morning, the Department, the Government will be looking very closely at it. I am confident that the new National Security Act gives government, and I genuinely pay tribute to the previous government for the work that they did in terms of introducing what is a groundbreaking piece of legislation. I am confident that that Act gives us the tools that we need, but I know that she will understand that we will look very closely at the decision that was communicated this morning and satisfy ourselves that we have all the necessary powers and tools to guard against the nature of the threat that we face.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. The first duty of any government is to keep its citizens safe, and I know the Minister has a track record in doing just that. He also rightly recognised that politics isn't just about the MPs or members of the other House. It's about political staff, it's about the clerks, it's about everybody that works in this place and in local government. So what reassurances can he give my constituent in Harlow and the greater population that he will be making sure that we stop foreign influence over democratic processes for everybody?
Minister.
I'm grateful to him, and I think he raises actually a very important point. I can give him and his constituents the assurances that he seeks. This government takes these threats incredibly seriously. We will do everything we need to do in order to keep the public safe. On behalf of the Prime Minister, I chair the Defending Democracy Task Force. The Prime Minister has recently renewed the mandate of that cross-departmental mechanism that ensures that we are able to provide a whole-of-government approach to the threats that we face. The government takes these matters incredibly seriously. These are not party political issues. I've always believed that these are matters that should be a shared endeavour, and I will want to work with him and with members right across the House to ensure that collectively we keep ourselves safe.
I'm going to go to the member that's been heavily involved in that, Alicia Kearns.
Mr Speaker, I'll be responding in a personal capacity, but can I start by thanking you, Mr Speaker, for the support you've given to us over the last 2 years, and place on record my gratitude to our intelligence community and counter-terrorism police who are exceptional. But from a securities perspective, today's events are disastrous. They will embolden our enemies and make us look unwilling to defend our own nation, even when attacked in this place and other world parliaments. I'm relieved the National Security Act will make it safer in future and easier to prosecute foreign spies, but can I urge the Minister to reform the Treason Act so that traitors are prosecuted and face justice, put China in the enhanced tier and support private prosecution? It remains unclear to me why Chris Cash and Christopher Berry cannot be prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act. The evidence shows a clear line between these two, the United Front Work Department and the Politburo, the very top of the Chinese Communist Party. This was information that was shared was prejudicial to the safety and interests of the UK, and I believe put members at personal risk. The Honourable Member for Tunbridge was told by agency heads that evidence was overwhelming, the case beyond doubt. And counter-terrorism police this morning agreed and said the same to me, and that the evidential standard had been met at the time of charges. So my question to the Minister is simple. If officials, the security services and the police agree that the case was a slam dunk, then why has the CPS not been able to get it over the line? And if the CPS wasn't confident, then why, given the compelling evidence, did they not put it to a jury and test it? So whoever is responsible for this decision, whether that's the Director of Public Prosecutions, an official in his own department or the Attorney General, they have weakened our defences as a country today, and I'm desperately sorry to see it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to her for her remarks today, and I completely understand why she's phrased them in the way that she has. Let me also join with the Honourable Lady in terms of thanking you, Mr. Speaker, for the work that you've done to keep parliamentarians safe. I think over the next few days, weeks, months and years, it's vital that we work together, and I look forward to meeting you later on today to discuss how we can ensure that we are working together to safeguard all of our parliamentary colleagues. Now, turning to the substance of the remarks made by the Honourable Lady, I agree with her characterisation of the National Security Act, and I'll look very carefully at the points that she's made specifically with regard to treason. In terms of her assessment of the decision that has been made, I completely understand why she's arrived at that conclusion, as will members right across the House. In my opening remarks, I expressed my extreme disappointment at the decision that has been made. These remarks and the judgments that people are forming in the House this afternoon will be heard by the CPS, and I know that she will take every opportunity, as will her right honourable friend who she referenced in her introductory remarks, to seek a meeting with them at the earliest available opportunity to hear and better understand the decision-making process that they have been through. As I've said previously, I am not able to speculate on the reason why they have taken this decision. I am extremely disappointed that they have, but I will do everything that I can to ensure that government is organised so that we can ensure that we've got the resources in the right place to stand against the threats that we face.
Mr. Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Security Minister will know I've raised with him on several occasions now the fears of the Hong Kong community in Bracknell and across the country. And today is just another reminder of the long arm of the Chinese state that so worries my constituents. Given this and given the real and genuine fears of the Hong Kong community, and it's good to see the Migration Minister in his place next to the Security Minister, does he agree that it's important, as we seek to rightly reform the immigration system, we nevertheless safeguard and protect the B&O visa route as a bespoke route, recognising the historic commitment we have to the Hong Kong community?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful for him for the work that he has done supporting his constituents and for championing Hong Kongers. Hopefully he heard the remarks that I made earlier about the respect and the admiration that we have for them and the importance that we attach to our relationship. I do completely understand the fears that have been represented by him and by a number of his constituents, and I've had a number of meetings with members of that community and will have further such meetings. But I look forward to working with him and with colleagues in the department to ensure that those from that community feel that the government will protect them, because that's what we'll always want to do.
So Ian Duncan-Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the following comments as somebody who has been sanctioned and hounded by the Chinese government all the way through over the last few years. I was briefed by the security services at the beginning that this was a slam dunk prosecution. They were clear they had met every single requirement within the Official Secrets Act. And if you look at what, as my right honourable friend has said earlier on, if you look at the Deputy National Security Advisor's assessment of the information communicated by these two characters who are being prosecuted, he is very clear that at least 10 of these 34 charges that were laid were absolutely about passing secure information to the Chinese intelligence agency and would be directly or indirectly useful to the Chinese state. That is very clear. It's not about the lack of evidence that this can have been dropped, therefore, by the CPS. The key here was the whole idea of the Official Secrets Act defining that work as against an enemy. That's the key. So why in heaven's name did the government not, when the opportunity arose after the audit on China, now take the opportunity to raise them up into the upper tier as they did with Russia, North Korea and Iran? The minister speaks of threats. But he doesn't say that China is a threat. He says they are a challenge. That is a ludicrous position to take. And I honestly feel today that this government has now let down the Speaker of this Parliament, who has bravely stood for people like me to protect us against the overtures of the Chinese. He's let down Parliament. Nobody knows now whether they're safe because these charges are dropped. And furthermore, it's absolutely key that until we define China as what it is, a threat, a persistent threat that targets individuals like me and others and states, then this will be a shame and a blot on our reputation as a strong state against terrorism.